Yesterday, I took Shobha to see Pike's Place. Anybody coming to Seattle has to go to Pike's Place, right? So, Pike Place. So off we went, and as we were walking, there was a wonderful store with Mexican art. So both of us walked in. I picked up some stuff which I broke. I broke a tortoise. And we went off to France to buy chocolate, which is the reason I come to Seattle. And on the way back, we went back to the store, and the gentleman at the store said, I do know who came into the store, and my wife is a great fan of hers. I just didn't want to say this in any way to, impinge on her space, but I know who she is. And similarly, we were in South Africa one year, many years ago, maybe 20 or 25 years ago, and coming down the lift opened, there was a gaggle of women who shrieked, oh my God, Shobha! And I was like, wow, whichever part of the world you take Shobha to, her books and her work, her personality has traveled literally across the many continents. So Shobha Day, welcome to Seattle for the first time.
What Sanjoy forgot to mention, and this is a tribute to Seattle, to the warmth of its people, to the way we've all been received, to the first edition in Seattle, and I hope there are going to be many more, to the amazing support we have received and the love we've received. So what he didn't say is the person in that store invited both of us to dinner to his home. He said,
and his wife is here, in fact, somewhere at the back.
I said, that has never happened. I mean, there could be people screaming, oh my God, Shobha Day, but someone spontaneously, a stranger saying, come and have dinner with us at our home. That is very Seattle. So thank you, Seattle, for this really wonderful way of saying we are welcome here. Delighted to be here, of course. I feel so much a war veteran in a way. And JLF is family to me, and every single edition of what they've done across the world has been spectacular and special in so many different ways. And so today we are here to talk about Insatiable, but I also want to quickly sneak in another book of mine while I'm at it, because I really loved writing this. And it was written in 2018, just before the world kind of collapsed, the financial meltdown that happened. So it was a very effervescent, very optimistic book. Look at how India was rising spectacularly then, and then of course came the crash. And my publishers, Penguin, asked me to do a 5,000 word piece, like a bridge connecting 2018 to 2024. And I hope in the fresh introduction in the new jacket, I've managed to connect the two Indias. Though, Sanjoy, because my hands are busy and I'm an old lady and I can't manage both hands, can you read this, doing stuff with it? There's just the introduction, which says something significant about the content of this book, just there. It says, when no one was looking, no. I'll need my second hand. Okay, let me find it. Okay. So the idea of doing this was really this. It says, India became Bharat when no one was looking. So that's what the introduction is all about. And there's a lot of subtext there for those of you who want to read the subtext. You're most welcome to interpret it as you please.
Shobha, I had a quick glance through Superstar India, and you start by talking about Alibag, which is, you're describing a little shop there, and Virat Kohli or somebody comes in there. You have a home in Alibag, you and Dilip Dey, for those of you who don't know, her wonderful husband. Is that where you retreat to write?
You must be joking. No, not at all. I retreat there to not write, to kind of switch off, and because it's the chaos of Mumbai life is a trigger for me. I love it. I love chaos. I get I go into some kind of a dreamlike and very boring stuff. In my head, Alibag is like a trance or a fantasy or something. It's so much my husband's domain. And I go there and he makes me feel like a pampered mistress. So why would I give up on that and say, excuse me, I want to write? No chance. Let him do his thing and let him impress me. And it's where I go really to feel that, to feel wanted and desired and loved. Because in Mumbai, it's almost impossible to get that time for ourselves in the way we should be.
You've written what, 20, 30?
25.
25 books.
26, it could be.
26, whatever number of books. In the middle of bringing up a brood, I mean, you have a brood. I remember in the early 80s when you used to be holidaying at the Taj village with your entire brood, Punita and me and Tarun and Geetan and our 4 kids used to be there. We used to look at your brood and it's like, how does she manage? I mean, how can anybody manage more than 2 children? How do you?
Well, to start with, let me just say that...
And then she also has some son-in-laws and one of them is vegetarian, Jen.
Well, if Sahil hears this, as it is, half the time the children are not talking to me because of something they've read in the book or someone has told them. Now my son-in-law, after this comment, is going to hate his mother-in-law, me. So let's just drop the Jain vegetarian son-in-law who's starved by this lady. Because I don't starve him, but I should be sort of working harder.
They very rarely order anything for him to eat, just for the record.
Rubbish, lies. But the brood is large, yes. I have 6 children and 7 grandchildren and maybe an 8th one on the way. So it's a very large family of temperamental and completely alpha people. Everyone has their own idea of life and identity, which is wonderful. It keeps everyone on their toes, especially me. But I can't resist this. How did I produce them? Well, biologically. Because in the sense, I'm not...
Some people are human,
Yeah, I'm not the non-biological leader of a democracy, so I'm just an ordinary woman doing my job as a mother and a wife and looking after my kids. So, we all come with our biological kind of limitations. Some people don't, but I haven't reached the goddess-like status like some privileged people in our country have. Gods.
Oh, I don't know, has anybody here read 70 and To Hell With It, which was Shobha's marking of her 70th birthday? Anybody here, apart from Amitabh? Well, after that, as she said, COVID came and she's written a whole series of books in between, and then came Insatiable. And this book in many ways is about love, it's about pain, it's about hurt, but mostly it's about food.
Well, I have to clarify that when I suggested this title and the content to my editors, they of course got it immediately, but the design team didn't. So when they submitted their first few designs, it had, pineapples, bananas, watermelons, biryani, puris, and then they asked me, ma'am, will it also have a section for recipes? So I kept saying it's not a food book. So they said, then what is it? Because you're talking about hunger. I said, it's hunger for life, which goes a little beyond food. And it's the reason I called it this, because I think we tend to underestimate all our hungers. And particularly, we underestimate the power of food in our lives. We take it too much for granted. And to me, food was really something that brings, it represents home and love and disappointment and annoyance. And there can be angry food, there can be happy food, there can be food for love, there can be intimate food which you share in bed with a lover. I mean, food has so many dimensions which very often they're neglected or unnoticed. So there's a lovely Hindi word which kind of defies literal translation, which is bhook. Bhook is very primal. Bhook is hunger, but it's much more than that. It's yearning, it's longing, it's craving for something, or it can be a very philosophical craving for something more than what your mundane life is offering you. And, or it can be treated like a feast, the movable feast kind of a... so it is, for me, food was a metaphor. It was also something to hang a memoir around. Because, I said to myself, the readers must be sick of it. At 50, she writes a memoir. At 60, she writes a memoir. At 70, she writes a memoir. So I said, I can't wait till I'm 80. I may or may not be around. So let's just go for it. 75 is a good enough number to write something kind of peppy and happy, which I do feel. I feel upbeat about so many aspects of just living. So I tried to capture that through food memories of old past ones when I was a kid, then of course eating with family and friends and so on. But the structure of the book, which is divided into 12 months, was quite a construct which was needed, because I decided to write it literally 14 months before my 75th birthday. So it means I had a lot of catching up to do and quickly produce the book. So we thought of doing it like chronologically, starting with my birthday falls in January. I had planned an Elvis Presley party because my heart has always belonged only to him and him alone. So I couldn't waste time on anything else. I mean, Elvis was my focus, and then came the book. So it was, Jan, Feb, leading up to the Elvis Presley party. It ends with the Elvis Presley party.
The last session that we had today was with Martin and Anand, and it was about culture. And much of this book is also about culture, the difference between kheer and payesh.
Oh, yes. Are there a lot of Bengalis or a few Maharashtrians? There'll be a huge battle about that because, of course, Bengalis, I'm married to a Bengali. I'm not a Bengali, which is God's blessing. But
I mean, come on.
But the battle lines are clearly drawn in our home because Bengali, everything about the Bengalis is superior. Their language is superior. Their food is superior. Their culture is superior. Their music is superior. How many, he'll ask me, challenge me, do you have a Nobel laureate who's from Maharashtra? Well, we have. I said, oh, just drop it. Kheer wins hands down. There's nothing to challenge there.
She's saying this because Dilipda is not here, let me tell you, and he's not giving instructions about the payesh and what goes into the payesh. But Shobha, going back, revisiting time, Shobha Rajyadaksh to Shobha Kilachand to Shobha Day, a lot of the writing that you did actually in many ways, many of you may not know this, but the very invention of English as we see it today was something that was coined by Shobha in her early writing. So take us back then.
Well, I have been writing in the public space for 53 years non-stop, never missed a deadline. About that, it's something I really feel good about. It's 53 years of non-stop writing, poor readers, but there you have it. It was inflicted on them for 5 decades, and they're still tolerating me, so I must be doing something right. So when we started Stardust, which was 51 years ago.
All of you know Stardust, or some of you know Stardust?
Stardust.
For those of you who don't know Stardust from Seattle, it was sort of the first big glossy film magazine that captured Stardust.
Yes, exactly. The name I hated. It wasn't given by me. It was given by the owner, publisher, Narihira, who just passed away a few months ago. And he was a very dear friend and a mentor to me all my life. So I miss him desperately. It was his vision, and I think he was kind of influenced by photoplay. He wanted something like photoplay. And Stardust was a famous nightclub, I think, or it's still there in Vegas.
I don't know whether it's still there, but it used
so
to.
I said to him, Stardust, it won't work here. And people will say, ki stars ka aap kachra bana rahe ho. You're throwing kachra on the stars. But maybe that was his original idea. Because in many ways, it was a very irreverent...
To translate, you're making rubbish of the stars. So.
Throwing dust, literally, reducing them to dust. But
this is before Twitter, so now it's a truth.
So that's what, he stuck to it, and he stuck to the format that eventually turned out to be so iconic. The writing of it and the English part of it was not something that we sort of plotted. He left it to me to create a voice and a tone for the magazine. And English came very naturally to me because when you live in Mumbai, we all speak what is called Bombaiya. It's a bastardized version of every conceivable language from India. But mainly it's Hindi, there's a bit of Urdu, there's Tamil, there's Gujarati, there's
Bihari.
Punjabi, there's Bihari. And I
No
like...
Bengali note.
Let me think. No Bengali? No, I'm sure I must have come up with something because there were the two Bengal tigresses, remember, ruling the roost at that time, Sharmila Tagore and Rakhi. No, but with Sharmila, I gave her a very fancy sounding name because she was royalty. She was Tagore. It was La Tagore. It stuck, and she quite liked it. So English came about quite, as I said, it was organic, it was natural. I started writing in that style, and of course, for the first few years, it was believed that, oh, this must be some semi-literate person hired by Nari Hira. He couldn't probably afford a proper editor and a proper writer who doesn't know English and is grammatically all wrong, and therefore using her mother tongue and other languages in the copy. When it became mainstream and Times of India headlines started to sound like Stardust, then I said, oh God, we've done either something very right or something very wrong. And it's now become completely acceptable. This is how we speak. This is how we have always spoken. So our English is distinctly our own. And I saw absolutely no reason to stick to the Queen's English and even Jane Austen was dead and gone. So why were we trying? And especially after I started writing books, and my language was what it was, and continued in my fiction and non-fiction. And I would be asked again, why aren't you writing like? So it was always a reference to a dead English writer from another century. So I said, why should I be writing like that when I can write like myself?
Did you want to just share some of the words that came out of your lexicon which have now stuck?
Well, bindas is hard to translate. It
Bindas
defies.
is sort of without a care in the world in a naughty way.
It's sort of badass, but beyond, right? So-and-so is so bindas can be a very affectionate word, too. It's not necessarily pejorative. So bindas was certainly one, but some of the names we gave the stars, like Shotkan Sila, Garam Dharam. I mean, how can he be anything but Garam?
Garam means hot, and Dharmender was this very superstar.
He was, yeah, and he's still hot at close to 80. No, close to 90. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
89.
Yeah, close, yeah. And he still works out, and he still poses pictures of himself in the swimming pool. So, Garam Dharam, he's taken it to her, absolutely, literally. I'm so glad it inspired him.
Shobhaa, many of your books, and I don't know whether all of you have read some of the books, Starry Nights, and many of them had characters, so when you read the book, you actually know perhaps who this character is. Characters who've sort of peopled and populated both Bombay and your life.
Well, this is something I always come up against. I don't think anyone who writes fiction is creating characters out of a hat. It's always personally referenced in some form or the other. It's either people from your own life, you're cannibalizing their life shamelessly. That normally happens in the first book, which is very self-revelatory, and you're mining your own life because that's the territory you know best. And after that, any writer of fiction is observant and curious and always listening. I'm a voyeur. I have no problems acknowledging that. I think we all are voyeurs. We don't call ourselves that, but particularly if you're a storyteller, you're always watching, you're always observing, you're always picking up signals, and language is something that interests me a lot. So nuances, how people speak, I'm always eavesdropping conversations at airports, or it fascinates me. So yes, inspired by, and Mumbai was, as still is, the characters of Mumbai is like, it's like an incredible zoo, and you never run out of inspiration. Unlike Delhi, which is sleazy and ugly and awful. Oh, we have a lot of Delhi crowd. Well, come live in Mumbai and then we'll talk. Well, Delhi is kind of a power-obsessed, like any capital city of the world. And when you're in Delhi, people are forever looking over your shoulder to see if someone more powerful, more interesting, more influential is coming. So there's never any eye contact ever because they're always searching for someone else who they can, approach for a favor. Well, Mumbai isn't like that. Mumbai welcomes you no matter where you come from. Like, I really have this little theory, and I'm sure it'll be tested tonight, and I'll be booed and hooted. In South India, the first things they'll want to know is your caste and subcaste. In Kolkata, it's your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, and which family you belong to. Are there any ICS people in your family or not? Did you have anyone in the Privy Council? No? Forget it. So you're nowhere. In Mumbai is the only place which kind of, I think, respects individuality and just raw talent. You can be a nobody. You walk into a room, people are not going to ask you, like in Delhi, which colony do you stay in? What difference does it make to you? Because that immediately places your status in Delhi, which area you live in. In Mumbai, they're likely to ask, what do you do? And if what you have to say for yourself is interesting, you get an in. You just are accepted. So I like how democratic Mumbai is, and really no one gives a damn. I mean, whether it's a Shah Rukh Khan coming into Mumbai and making it as one of the biggest stars in the world, I would say, or is it Dhirubhai Ambani, a petrol pump attendant, and look where he is. This is how Mumbai works.
Now, hey.
This is how Mumbai works. Are we on pause there? Is it about the wedding?
No. not the wedding. But Shobha, you talked about characters in Mumbai, and over the years, through your books,
Yes.
those two have changed from the oily Seth who
Yes.
populated some of your earlier novels to the more
Always
sophisticated...
Delhi-based,
Oh,
the oilies.
wherever.
Never Mumbai.
Wherever.
It's symbolic of Delhi, all that's wrong with it.
To what it is today, many of your characters today are quite different from what they were, say, 30 years ago.
Well, I'm different from what I was 30 years ago. The people I probably meet are very different, which is why I wanted you so much to read the introduction, because I'll give you, how many minutes do we have?
5 according to somebody who's messaged. So.
Okay, so I'll just give you a quick thing. There is a restaurant which has opened in Mumbai. It's called Bastion, and it's owned or fronted by a beautiful Lissom lady called Shilpa Shetty. And it is like no other restaurant in the universe. I mean, when you enter it, it's like, where am I? And for me as a Mumbaiker to be saying it, it's startling. It's like 30,000 square feet of nonsense. It's so out there, such vulgarity. It's astonishing. And how successful. They are doing a turnover of something like, I only know Indian, like crores and lakhs. I don't know American, okay? So dollars and all, you guys can convert it. Like if they're doing a business of 2 to 3 crores a night. 2 to 3 crores a night.
So that's about $200,000 to $300,000 a night.
And if you
a night's turnover.
Yes. And if you're booking one of their party zones, they have 2 of them, you first put down 35 lakhs to book it.
$35,000 for that night to book the place.
To book the place. And there's a waiting line of maybe 200 people waiting to get in every single day. But when you walk in there, and I did with my husband, huge mistake. I said, oh my God, this is a birthday treat. He's going to love it. He's going to say, where are we? And oh gosh, I mean, this is just too exciting. And he looked around and he said, when can we leave? So, it was so disturbing. So I said, no, you have to go to the loo because you'll then be able to walk around. It's a 360-degree wraparound restaurant, which sees the sea link and all of it. And the people there could be, I don't know, if this is a representative of the Mumbaikar, because it's not in Juhu or Bandra or South Mumbai. It's in Dadar, for heaven's sake. Dadar is like the heartland of Maharashtrian conservative middle-class Mumbai. And there is this monstrosity called Bastion. And who are all those people who are driving up, roaring up in their Porsches and their Ferraris? God knows. They all look like gangsters, behave like gangsters. And then there are these 7 feet tall Afghan bodyguards walking around just to make sure everyone behaves. I mean, it's so bizarre. I loved it. I can't wait to go back. I totally loved it. But my husband was shell-shocked. So I think I'll just find someone else to go back with.
You know, as we sort of sadly come to the end of this very fascinating conversation, Shobha, one of the things that struck me about this book, which I haven't seen in many of your other books, perhaps To Hell with Its 70, was a sense of pain and sadness in between. Yeah. I forget whether it was the monsoon months or just post-monsoon months when you get to.
Always but always, the monsoon does something to me. I see those rain clouds coming over the bay. We live right on the sea. And those dark clouds remind me of many things, maybe which I have not actually acknowledged, have not completely processed or dealt with. And it's not a bad thing. You know, no one's life can be lived in la la land. It's not one perpetual, non-stop, amazing party. So introspection and a deeper look into your own life and maybe what remains of it and how you can add another dimension to it vis-a-vis the people you share your life with is, I think, very important. And all these years, maybe I didn't give myself that time. But it's high time now to do it. And if I have made mistakes, this is the time, I think, to say I'm sorry and make up for it.
Before I open it up, the other thing that comes through, you write at some point saying that as a brood, as a family, you gather at so many different occasions, celebrations and anniversaries and birthdays, and then you say, perhaps I should do less of that because all of these celebrations are, needless to say, a reason for somebody to get upset.
Always. I mean, weddings are notorious across the world. There's got to be a big fight or, I mean, what kind of a wedding was it? Someone or the other has to be at it. So with me, I'm just getting fatigued because everyone, even yesterday I was speaking to my daughter and I said, we'll be planning a wedding soon in the family. So she said, oh, great, Mom. So are we going to have pre? Are we going to have post? Are we going to have, and will there be a youngsters party? I said, go to hell, plan it yourself. I mean, I'm kind of done. Give me a break. Will they? No chance. So when I go back, even today, slavishly, I'm really a big fuss when it comes to my family. I mean, I pretend to be dragon lady in charge of my life. They reduce me to a puddle and bully me ruthlessly, all of them. I'm just their slave. They just sort of make a call and say, oh, you haven't found the time to do it? What have you been doing? I said, I'm at a lit fest. Oh, that.
And oh, that, by the way, she writes about, literally every alternate chapter has got a visit to some JLF somewhere in the world. Before we end and open it up, Shobha, much of your public life, or in this case, your Twitter life and your writings on the politics of the time, you've received as much hatred as you've received praise, but perhaps more hatred, and lots of death threats to go with it. Yeah. How do you deal with that pressure of this other sort of, the politics of writing?
I liked something you said yesterday, Sanjoy. It was called, I think you said the politics of politeness. But I don't know that word, polite. When it comes to politicians, they don't deserve it, they don't warrant it. I have no political agenda, I've never had one. And I think my job as a commentator or someone who's been given a responsibility of columns, I write 3 a week and I've been writing those for over 50 years. My job is to reflect the public opinion and what citizens feel because they all may not have that voice. So I am not there to do chamchagiri to any political person, and if it upsets them, which it does greatly, and if they're going to send goons to my house and read out the riot act to me, so be it. I have fought them in the Supreme Court and won. I've survived legislative assembly privilege motions and won that too. So really bring it on, because I will be speaking up. I will continue to speak up, because you're not paying my bills, honey. I'm paying my own bills, and you're responsible to me. I'm paying for you. These are my taxes that are seeing you where you are. So honestly, the kind of bullying attitude that one sees across the world, and an attempt to muzzle the press, attempt to muzzle any kind of opinion that goes against what the establishment has approved of. And I was really extremely flattered. I mean, I'm very rarely flattered, but when I believe the vice president, and who's the speaker now, Jankar, said to a common friend who repeated it to me directly after a meeting with him, that please tell Mrs. Day that she was one of the only journalists who stood up to our government when no one else did. So for me, that was a big plus. And that he said it is a big plus for him.
A really annoying question to close. You've written so many, 25 odd books. Is there a favorite that you would sort of prescribe and say this is the book that really reflects?
Oh gosh, never. No, I read all of them and I cringe. I said, my God, did I really write all this? It has to be the next book, because that excites me a lot. These are over and done with. So I like, I don't know, do I even like them? I'm not sure.
The insatiable and irresistible Shobhaa Day.
Maybe my next book should be called Incorrigible to go with.
Questions, if anybody wants to, please do come up to the mic. And
it's been an absolute pleasure to see you, because like while growing up as a lower middle class family in India who traveled all across India, like, you know, you'll be like, hey, read the newspaper every day. And there'll be like these boring stories in Times of India, Indian Express and whatnot. And then you can see your like Jak Surya, you, and like Karan Thapar. Like those are like icons, like, okay, yeah. How to, I would say, like, I know it's a little, might sound like a little condescending, but like, you know, how do you should write? How do you read? Like, how do you speak English? Like stuff like that. Because English in India is not a language, it's more of a skill. That's how I put it. that yeah, and yeah, coming to that, you have been writing for so long, right? And what do you see the difference in the middle class of India? Like, how have their ethos changed? Like, because I think in 90s and 2000 there used to be this globalization and like being more tolerant, but now as we go, India becoming Bharat, or yeah.
Sure. So how's the middle class changed?
The middle class is unrecognizable, and I'm so happy about that. It's aspirational. It's extremely out there with their ambition. They're working very hard. They set their own standards much higher than when I was growing up as a middle class girl. The only thing we could dream about, or which our parents would tell us, is become an engineer, become a doctor, become, what else? Doctor, pilot. Pilot, or join the armed forces.
Engineer, accountant.
Accountant was tougher. You know, it was, no, you couldn't aspire to even that. So today it's the young, the possibilities, the opportunities, and the encouragement that their parents provide is something phenomenal. And they're so aware of their own potential, which we were not. We didn't have a confidence. Today, the young Indian is striding across the world with so much swag. And it's swag that's coming from something. And about your comment about the average Indian not being able to speak English very well, I think the average American's English is atrocious. So I don't think language per se should keep you or hold you back. Apun log aisa che. So apun log aisa che, and look where we've gone and look where we've reached. So why should language be something that you feel embarrassed about? This is how we express ourselves. And at the end of the day, it's about communication. It's not about perfect grammar. It's about, can you communicate to whoever you wish to what you need to communicate? And I do believe Indians are first class and amazing communicators. And they do it through mime and their body language and mixing up a whole lot of languages. But do they get their work done with jugaad? You bet they do. So that is something very admirable.
I think Namita had a question to ask. You'll have to come to the mic, Namita, because they're recording. Yeah.
As I was telling Shobhaa the other day, I've been inspired by her. You know, started reading her about from the first novel and the Indian Express middle piece. Besides that intellectual thing, you have been my style inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah. What has your been? You know, you have always been so stylish. So I want to know, where do you get your inspiration?
What's your
I
style
still copy
inspiration?
you, actually.
Okay.
Well, I can only tell you, I grew up with a very limited budget. My parents had 4 children, and there certainly wasn't any extra money to indulge a bratty youngest daughter who may have had fancy ideas of who she was and what she wanted to do. So I used to invent and make my own stuff with go to the darzi, if there was some scrap left over from my mother's whatever. And I'm still doing exactly that. Not this particular sari, which is, but I'm all for sustainability and for recycling my older, I have clothes going back 30, 40 years. That's the Maharashtrian thriftiness. And you don't just throw money, because we were always told that you'll be insulting Lakshmi. If you don't respect Lakshmi, Lakshmi will run away from you. And I've tried to pass it on to my daughters as well. And we share a lot of clothes, and they go like it's a cycle. And then they wear it in their own way. I wear their stuff in my own way. And now they've taken to cutting up all my old saris. I said, listen, hold on. I mean, there's got to be a kind of, I'm drawing the line somewhere. So, yes, they're cutting up my saris and saying, we're making ikat cords for ourselves. I said, no, you're not. Not with my ikats, you're not. But yeah, old saris and old fabric being recycled. I mean, it's something, style is not something someone can teach you in a fashion school. It's something you have to know your own personality and, go with what suits you and be age appropriate. I think is also a bit important, but not always important. You can interpret age as you wish, but being stylish and being fashionable are completely 2 different things.
Namita.
Shobhaa, I wanted to pick up from the last conversation before this one, where you talked about language and how you used it. And I go back in generations enough to remember what you did with Neeta's Natta, that when you were doing this column in Stardust, then on one side you had Salman Rushdie going on about language and how to use it, but the way you used it was absolutely inspirational, because you took it up and you engagified with it and and so tell us about that how, when you wrote that column.
That chutnification of
This thing that you began, how did you do it?
That masala mix. But since you mentioned Salman Rushdie, I have to boast a little bit, if you may allow me to do
Certainly
so.
allow
That
you.
when I did meet him, I have met him a few times, but the first time he came to Mumbai after the fatwa and so on, and we were at a sit-down dinner together, and he did tell me...
With Padma.
With Padma, yes. He did tell me that how that column and that early language, the use of language, had inspired him, given him a kind of things that, okay, let's use it for Midnight's Children. Now, and then Amitav Ghosh said it also to me. He said when he was writing initially, that use of language, bending the rules of language, and I think if 2 such incredible people can say that to you, I mean, they're just such superior, far superior writers, they're great intellectuals. If they have the humility to say it to me, who's really a nobody in the literary landscape, I mean, they are up there, I think it speaks a lot about them, but it was immensely flattering for me too.
That's not my question.
It was
I agree.
You said, how did you do it? I don't know.
That you told us what they reacted. I want to know what led you to own up to English so beautifully as to be able to write
How
it.
can you explain that? It was something
It was
so
brilliant.
natural.
Oh,
It was the way I spoke.
Okay.
Or it was Bambaya speak.
It was just
It's
brilliant,
also
whatever.
again to Nari Hira's credit.
Yes.
Supposing he had said to me that this column, I mean, the way you're using language, it's not English. But he did not say that. He
So anyways,
completely understood.
Salute to you for that. That's all.
Salute him. Had he said, no, you can't use this language, change the style. I was an employee, I would have changed the style. I would have written to whatever his vision for that column was. I would have done that, right? I needed the job.
I think that column was the most path-breaking thing you did.
Oh,
and you've
thank
done
you.
so much more, but it
Thank you.
was.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the next book, 80 and I'm Still Young, Shobhaa Day.